Good morning and welcome to Godly Play. Today we're going to continue our stories of the Old Testament patriarchs. If you remember, last week we were talking about Abram and Sarai, who became Abraham and Sarah. Now, Abraham, had a very close relationship with God. Talked to God probably every day. And one day, Abraham said to God, "Who will I leave my things to when I die?" And God took him outside and said to him, "Abraham, do you see this night sky?" The night sky would have been very dark. "And do you see all the stars in the sky?" Imagine if you went outside at night and looked up into the sky and all the twinkling stars that you saw. Well, God said to Abraham, "You will have as many children as there are stars in the sky." Now, Abraham thought, don't know how that's going to happen, but that's what God told me, so I'm going to believe that. A little while later, Abraham and Sarah had 3 visitors come to their house. And the 3 visitors, well, Abraham welcomed the 3 visitors into the house. He fed them and he gave them water to drink, and they talked and they went on, and the 3 visitors told Abraham the same thing that God had said, that he and Sarah would have a son. Well, by this time Abraham was very old, so that was very hard to believe that this could happen. In fact, Abraham thought it was so strange and so funny that he was almost rolling on the ground laughing. And Sarah was listening from the other side of the house, and Sarah was getting old too, and she thought, how could she ever have a baby? And so she laughed and laughed and laughed too. But the visitors said to Abraham, "We're going to come back and visit you a year from now. And at that time, you and Sarah will have a baby, and it will be a son." And the visitors laughed. Well, Abraham and Sarah laughed together about this visit and couldn't believe that it could happen, as old as they were. What do you know? A little while later, Sarah became pregnant, and she had a baby, and it was a baby boy, and they named the baby boy Isaac. The name Isaac means "he who laughs." Abraham and Sarah thought this was a good name for Isaac because they had thought the stories that they heard about them having a baby were so funny. So Isaac became the next Old Testament patriarch. Okay, let's hear a little bit more about Isaac and what happened in his life. Isaac grew up to be a fine young man, and he helped Abraham and Sarah take care of their sheep and their crops, and was a very good son. But at some point, as Isaac had grown up, Abraham and Sarah decided that Isaac needed a wife. And he needed a wife so that he could have some children and could continue with God's promise to Abraham of bringing many children to Abraham. So Abraham called one of his workers and said, "I need you to go back to my hometown." Remember, Abraham and Sarah had been on many travels and lived far away from their hometown. Abraham said to this worker, "I need you to go to my hometown and find a wife for Isaac. Okay, the worker said, all right, Abraham, I'll do that. And he traveled with some other people and some animals and some things to take back to the hometown. Traveled all the way to the hometown. When he got to the hometown, he came to the center of the town and he stopped near a well. And he sat and he had his own conversation with God, and he said to God, how am I going to find the right woman for Isaac? He said, please let me stop at this well. Let me talk to the women and girls who come to the well. And the girl who offers me a drink and offers my camels a drink, let her be the one to be the right wife for Isaac. So he sat there at the well, and many girls came up and drew water from the well. Some of them didn't talk to him at all, but along came a girl named Rebecca. Rebecca drew the water from the well, but she noticed this man standing there, and she said to the man, Sir, would you like a drink from the water that I draw from the well? And he said, oh, yes, I would certainly like that. And so she gave him a drink, and then she said, Sir, would you also like me to give your camels a drink from the water that I draw from the well? And the man was so excited. He thought, this has got to be the girl. So he took the drink for the camels, and then he asked the girl to take him back to her family. And she had a big family there, all of Abraham's relatives that he had left behind in his travels. So they went to meet her family, and he explained how he had been sent by Abraham to find a wife for Isaac. And would this girl be willing to come back with him and become Isaac's wife? The girl's name was Rebecca. And both she and her family were very excited about her becoming Isaac's wife. So after some rest and some talking, the worker and Rebecca, the animals, and all went back to where Abraham and Isaac and Sarah lived, and Rebecca became Isaac's wife. And they lived a very happy life together, with more adventures to come in the next story.